We all know how to use social media as users. But today we're going to look behind the curtain to learn why we post the things we do, why developing your personal brand online will get you hired for internships and jobs, and what to do if you are looking at social media as your career. Pop Sugar and Social Strand Media is in the house. From Academy of Art University School of Multimedia Communications in San Francisco, this is Com Conversations. Thanks for joining us. I'm John Scott, an instructor and the Career Services Manager for the Comm Department. We appreciate you joining the conversation. We have a live studio audience as well as our live stream on YouTube. We have an assignment for you today, and it's an easy one. In case you're shy about getting up in front of the mic and talking to our guests, we want you to use social media to ask our guests and to get their expertise. So use the hashtag AAUComm, and we'll forward your questions to our very talented guests, and here they are. Tracy Sestili is the CEO of Social Strand Media in San Francisco. She's an author, speaker, trainer, and strategist. She's worked with companies and nonprofits alike. Tracy is also an instructor with UC Berkeley Extension and others. Julia Sievert does technical recruiting for a company whose name is very well known by many of the students in this room, Pop Sugar, quickly becoming a global brand for young women offering content on style, celebrity, shopping, and more. Please welcome our guests. Let's start. Fill in the blanks for the bio that I left out. Tell us about your company, Social Strand Media.
So at Social Strand, we help people basically build better brands, right? So we're helping them with brand awareness, we're helping them with build communities, customer engagement, and convert that into revenue.
Mm-hmm. A lot of our students know how to communicate with all these social media platforms. They have their favorite WeChat or Instagram or WhatsApp or whatever. But the art of conversation, finding and developing audience is a totally different thing, especially if you're a student about to look for work. And a lot of us don't even know where to start. So tell us a little bit about what you know about the power of personal broadcasting.
I think you have a choice of whether or not you want to be in charge of your brand or you want the internet to be in charge of it. And one of the things, and I'm sure Julia will talk to this, but LinkedIn is, usually on the first 3 search things on the search result that come up. So by even just perfecting your LinkedIn profile helps you control what's said about you. And everything that you post is also indexed now. So.
Mm-hmm. You help companies and nonprofits find their voice, right?
Yes.
So, shocking as it sounds, and I'm sure this is more the case for smaller businesses, because most corporations are they have a strategy and they have teams in place, although they're not perfect, right? Yeah. But a lot of businesses think, well, I'll just, I'll put up a Facebook page and then thousands of people will look at me and this is going to be great, and I'll post once a day. That's my social media strategy. Tell us why that is so horribly outdated.
Yeah, I mean, we're not in the land of if you build it, they will come kind of thing. Today people are looking for contextual, relevant, personal content that they can engage with that seems sort of native. We're actually moving to this new arena of content called native content, and it's really where you see something, it doesn't really look like an ad, but it looks like a personal story or something that you want to engage with, and so that's really kind of where we're going.
We make, as human beings, about 4 or 5 different decisions before we decide to post something. You probably studied this. Just like we would do, though, if we were in person. If we took an old school photo of ourselves and we wanted to put it in a book and share it with people, we would want that picture to be as flattering as possible. And we edit, we Photoshop, we fix what we present to the world online. So when people say, I want to show you something very interesting. Guys, if you can get a shot of this. I did a screenshot of this from one of my friend's Facebook profiles. Look what it says. Now, to me, my friend is saying, what's the point in doing this? They're not my real friends anyway. But what I see more of that is, well, it's kind of what you do with it, because the way we present ourselves as humans in person with each other, we craft our image, we try to say the right things depending on who the audience is. Well, do you agree with that?
Some people have no filter though, right? And I would say that I think people are under this false impression that when they post something on Facebook and they're just posting it to their friends, that privacy exists on social media. And there's no such thing as privacy on social media on any network. And I don't care how savvy you think you are. Like, if you're going to put it on social media, then you should be prepared to take out a full page ad during the Super Bowl and broadcast it to the world, because that's pretty much who's going to see it.
Julia, for those who don't know what your company does, fill us in.
We're a privately held social media company. We focus heavily on content and e-commerce, and what we're really proud of, we're around 72% female employees, especially for a tech company, which is really rare.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're both Germans. We share
Oh,
that
you
in
are?
common.
I didn't know.
Yes.
Okay.
So you studied overseas. You came over. So, and you've done different jobs. What about Pop Sugar impressed you that made you want to find people for them?
It was the culture, mainly. It was, like I said earlier, we have, mainly female employees, which I was really drawn to. Everyone, it feels like in our company, everyone is, we're all working together, we're collaborating. It seems like we all have one goal in the company.
That's nice.
Yeah.
What are the biggest mistakes candidates for jobs make?
Misrepresenting themselves, putting things on your resume that aren't true, or sugarcoating your resume, and then when I actually ask you about something and you don't really have an answer, right? Or heavily relying on job posts, just applying through job posts, right? You want to network. Network is key here. I think those are one of the most important things.
Great. And we'll get into that, how that works too, in a few minutes. Take us through the steps of a branding campaign. Let's say it's a company, a retail company. They have brick and mortar buildings, but they also have, and they want to have, a strong social media imprint. What are the first questions that they have to ask? And I guess this would be the same as someone who was an entrepreneur and wanted to start their own small business. What are the first initial questions that need to be asked before they open the accounts?
I mean, I think you need to understand who your audience is, where they're hanging out online. You have to listen. Part of setting up a brand and launching a brand is understanding and creating a social strategy from that. And there's no sense in spending your time on Instagram or Pinterest if your customers aren't hanging out there to begin with and having conversations, because you want to build a community. You can have the best product or service out there, but without a community, you're not going to be very successful.
And a company that's using social well knows what product is up to, knows what sales, and knows what marketing is up to as well, right?
That's right.
And she rolled her eyes earlier when I said big companies have it figured out, but these companies do have what they call silos. Everyone works in their own group and people don't talk to each other. And so the social media team puts out something and marketing goes, hey, what are you doing? But it's because they haven't spoken to each other about it, right?
That's right, yeah.
A reminder for those watching the live stream on YouTube and those here in Studio 140 on campus, use the hashtag AAUCOM and toss up your questions. Tracy Sestili, I've said many times, I'm certainly not the first to say it, the internet has enough content. The sheer volume of stuff available online is frankly quite shocking. If I asked everyone in the room to leave this place and go read the internet, and you couldn't take a break and you couldn't sleep, how long do you think it would take? 100,000 years to read the internet without stopping. That's what they've estimated. So there is so much content, it's just staggering how much stuff. Now, of course, we need new content, but building a community is the key to using social successful, finding a crowd, speaking to them, and relating with them.
Yeah, I mean, you have to listen, right? Like, that is the number one thing you do with a social strategy. Like, social strategy, creating one, there's like 7 or 8 basic steps. And listening is like the number one thing, because that's the only way that you're going to be able. I have this thing about content. It has to be HIE, H-I-E. It's my own acronym. It stands for helpful, informative, or entertaining. If it's not that, then you shouldn't be putting it out there, because nobody wants to read it anyway. And that goes for brands or personally. Like, no one wants to read, that you went to the bar with your friends and, had a beer and you put a photo up of it. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, right? But even for brands, they have the same kind of issue. It's this batch and blast kind of like, here's what's going on with us, right? And when you tend to put and tell stories, I have a friend of mine who writes a blog called Keeping It Human, and she talks about how brands really need to embed like the more personalization, more company employee stories, more behind the scenes stories, like making your brand more humanized. And that, I think, is really what people start to resonate with. It's a trust factor.
What prevents businesses usually from finding that community? How come they can't do it?
I think a lot of brands just don't really, they just go out of the gate. They don't really have a strategy in place. Each social network that you get on needs its own strategy, and then you need like an overarching strategy, and they all should really tie back into your marketing goals, right? I mean, the marketing department has goals for the entire company, and all the social strategies for each of the networks should kind of tie back into one of those goals.
A student will have a marketing strategy as well, to be seen, to be known, to have a consistent brand across different platforms. How do they start thinking about how to market themselves as a person who knows how to edit video, who knows how to perform in front of camera, or to do a podcast? How do they?
I mean, this is how I got my start, right? I mean, you obviously can start writing a blog, but you can also posting on LinkedIn, even if it's not something that you've written, but posting a thoughtful comment on LinkedIn and sharing a news article or a story that you read about something that is in your niche, that is kind of what gets you to be known. And the thing is that people are really shy for status updates. They don't want to post them, or they don't want to post on Twitter because they're like, no one's listening to me, they don't really care. But the bottom line is that people do see it, and the key is that you're top of mind when someone needs your product or service. So no matter whether you're a company or a person, the constant mention of your name and the things that you're putting out there, oh, you know a lot about video editing, or you know a lot about photography. Oh, either I'm going to come to you for your product or service, or I'm going to come to you for a recommendation. In either case, I came to you.
Julia, if someone does tweet out or post up pictures that they were at the bar and they had fun, they went on vacation and shared some photos. It's not professional, but it does tell you about the kind of person that you might be bringing into the company.
It does, but especially, you know, when I go back to Pop Sugar, we are a really casual, friendly environment. You know, there is no dress code. There is, it's a really fun environment. So I post pictures about my vacations, you know, and I don't judge people that apply to do that. You know, it has to be in a certain range, obviously, right? You don't want to post inappropriate pictures, but.
If you saw somebody that had naked photos, though, would you, or inappropriately dressed photos that they might come to the office dressed in that outfit, would you, is there anything on social media that you would see that you might be apprehensive about?
Yes, nude photos, probably, absolutely. You know, that's just a no-go. You can't do that. Yeah.
Drunk tweets
Don't treat.
usually
Same
have
deal,
things.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, they usually have bad
Yeah.
stuff. Somebody once told me pictures of you hoisting cocktails at the bar shows that you're social, you like to have fun, you're a fun person to hang out with. Photos of you drunk on the couch
Not so much.
in your boxer shorts,
Right.
less so. So take us through the process of recruitment. How do you find people to work at the company?
Okay, so there are a bunch of different processes, a bunch of different steps. Usually what I do first, I source candidates. I try to find, you know, talented people who I want to, you know, bring into the company. And I usually use LinkedIn to find candidates, especially I am mainly responsible for our engineering department. So that's the main source I use to find talent. And then I'm currently trying to fill a UI role where I use Behance or Working Networking, Dribble, right? Pretty much, so the first step for me is to find the candidate. The second step would be to set up a phone screen with me to, you know, for me to get a better understanding about their previous experiences, what they're looking for. And then the next step would be to set up a technical phone screen with the hiring manager.
How important is the phone screen? It's a deal. It can be a deal breaker, right?
It can be a deal breaker, yeah.
How can someone prepare for it? You don't know what you're going to be asked. You're
Sure.
excited that the company is called. You're like, well, I have a phone interview with this great company. What kind of things can they do to anticipate what you want?
Number one, research about the company, right? You don't want to ask me, what do you guys actually do, right? That's not what I want to hear. I want to know why you're excited about this opportunity. What have you done in your past, in your career? And especially as a new grad, I think the difficult part is that we don't have a lot of data points. We don't really know much about your, previous experiences. You probably don't have a lot of references. So don't underestimate, freelance work or side projects or volunteering. That's really important.
When you go to parties and you tell people where you work, usually people get excited and want to ask you more questions.
Very, yeah.
How do you like to be approached with an elevator pitch by a stranger or student? How would you like to have someone do a cold call on you?
Elevator pitches are interesting because, you have to have it ready. You have to drop it every second I ask you, right? And I know that you probably wrote down your elevator pitch and you probably know every single word on it. So I like if you, try to make it sound natural.
Do you ask candidates in interviews to tell me about yourself? Is that how
Yes.
you often start?
I do, yeah.
What do you expect to hear after you ask that question? I own a golden retriever and
No, there is not real. It totally depends on the candidate, right? There is no structure. Be personal and tell me about your experiences. Tell me about what you do in your free time, Just walk me through your resume.
They should practice it though, right?
Yeah, but there are no rules, But you should practice.
That pitch
You
works
should.
great at networking events. It works great at cocktail parties. It works everywhere. When you meet a stranger and they say, well, hey, Julia, tell me about, what's going on. You want to have like a paragraph ready, and you can sort of customize it for any occasion. But
Sure.
are you wanting to know about the candidate, or are you wanting to know what the candidate knows about you?
I like candidates who researched about me. I like candidates who connected with me on LinkedIn before the interview, just to show me, oh, I know what you're doing and I know who you are, but I also want to know about the candidate, yeah.
How much contact is too much?
I actually had an interesting story that happened last week. I tried to find an intern for one of our quality assurance positions, and he was super eager and he really, really wanted to be the intern. And I interviewed him, we set him up on the phone screen, and I said, okay, give me a week. I have some other candidates I have to interview. And within that week, I received, I think, 3 phone calls, 2 emails, and he left me a voice message and telling me, have you forgotten about me? No, I haven't forgotten about you. Just give me some time. And that's too much.
Once a week, okay?
Yes.
To tap you on the shoulder and say,
Yes,
still
absolutely.
really excited.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Students will go through their program here, and at some point the light will go on. I have to get a job.
Yes.
Some students come to me 6, 7 months before they need to, and they go, I want to be ready. Some come to my office a week before graduation and say, oh my God, I don't know what to do. How can a graduate, someone who's about to graduate, what would be your advice on how they could establish their personal brand that sells their skills and strengths? Whether they're an undergrad or graduate student, one of their last classes is kind of a get a job class. So we go through the portfolio, the reel, a business card if you need to have that stuff, all that sort of thing. But what else can they do to get ready to position themselves publicly as, I'm the great video editor, or I'm a great writer?
God, I hope they don't wait until the week before graduation to do this. I think, your LinkedIn profile has got to be up to snuff, like out of the gate. It's something that you should just go home today and do if it's not ready. But, like I said earlier, it's just you have to post content and thoughtful commentary about things that you want to be known for. The internet is really geared towards keywords. And so whether it's in your Twitter bio or your LinkedIn bio or even your Facebook bio, what you want to be known for, and that's what those keywords. If you're a photographer or video editor, make sure that those words are everywhere in every single profile that you have online. Like that consistency is key.
If you see a LinkedIn profile that's a student at Academy of Art University, what does that tell you when you look at it?
No experience.
It's true.
No experience, or I don't know what I want to be when I grow up.
Yeah.
Even though you are a student, I always advise students to put in something else: multimedia communicator, visual storyteller. There's all those fancy words, or video editor.
Well, that's like what Julia was alluding to earlier when she said, don't discount volunteering. I mean, a lot of students often say, hey, what can I do to get some experience? You have no experience in this field, but yet you want to put that in your LinkedIn profile, and people are very, touchy-feely about, well, I don't want to put in that I'm a multimedia video editor because I really haven't had that much experience. But there are thousands of nonprofits out there that would love your experience for you to donate your time on one project even. I encourage you to kind of go search for that, because that's something you can add to your resume, right? And
Agree.
internships too.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's, a good way how to get yourself into a company, to just start with an internship.
Yeah.
Good networking and establishing a brand. Would you both agree that being generous and giving more information than asking for favors is a better way to establish yourself as being a credible person in whatever endeavor you want to take on?
I agree with that. You don't want to be that person who only gives when you get something out of it. You want to show that you're a collaborator. You can give. You don't always have to take.
Yeah, it's just like the helpful, informative, entertaining.
Do you look to see if students have shared links, articles, information with other people as part of their overall networking scheme?
Yeah.
Do you scrape their Twitter feed and look to see what they have to say?
I do, yeah.
That's great.
I love social media. I love our candidates, Instagram accounts and Twitter accounts and Facebook accounts. I look at all of those. Yeah.
We encourage you to follow COM on our various social media platforms. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and we have a blog too. The most popular blog articles I found after doing this for a while are student success stories. They're aspirational. We put up lots of other information, and people look at it a little bit, but the stories of where are they now have proven to be real page view winners for us. And of course, LinkedIn, we have a special group. It's called Academy of Art University COM Careers. And it's a private group. It's open only to students in this degree program. And we actually have a few recruiters that have been allowed to come in. They want to look and see what you have to say. So we're Academy Art Com on Instagram. We're Academy Art Com on Facebook. We're at Academy Art Com on Twitter. Do you approve of our uniform branding of the name?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it should be consistent. I think some brands have the trouble because some vanity URLs are taken and you don't get that opportunity, but you can kind of get close.
It's been said the era of blogginess has sort of come and gone. Back in the day, there were all these various platforms and everyone wrote journals and pictures of their cats and their dogs and stuff. But now we've moved on, some say, but that's not actually true, is it?
No, I mean, for companies and even personal people, I have a rule about blogging. Like, you have to like to write a lot, be passionate about your topic. If you're not passionate, it's not going to come through in your writing, so people aren't going to be interested. The reason why the blogs about the personal success stories probably does well is because students who are looking to come to Academy of Art are interested in how they're going to do after they graduate, right? It's like something that they can relate to. It's personal, it's relevant. But blogging should be, for a brand to do blogging successfully, you have to blog consistently. So it has to be, at a minimum once a week, and a minimum the same day per week, whether it's a personal or a brand blog, it doesn't matter. Because people need to know when to come back of when you're going to publish something. If you publish today on Monday and then you decide that next Monday you're not feeling it, so you decide you're going to publish a blog on Thursday because that's when you have something to say, that's all great and dandy, but then the person's not going to subscribe to your blog because they don't really know when to come back and when you're publishing content. And so that consistency at a minimum once a week for regular traffic.
Wouldn't you agree that the number one word when we talk about developing an audience, having people want to look at your stuff, want to learn more about you, isn't the word important? That once you've become important, you've got them.
I think it's credibility. I think trust is another one. I'm not sure if it's important. I think that people can be important, but you might not trust them, right? Or they might not be a credible necessary source. I mean, Donald Trump is considered important, but he's not somebody that I would trust, for example. Not to get political on you all, but.
He is, I guess he is important, huh?
Right, so, I mean, Hillary Clinton is important, would you vote for her? I mean, whatever. But, I mean, that's what it's really going to come down to, right? If you have Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton in this presidential race, who do you trust more? They're both important people, but it does come down to trust.
So a student is trying to establish a reputation for themselves, and we find that a lot of students don't default to writing as their first thing that they love to do. They like things more visual, taking still photos or videos. But I mean, how important is a short hit once a week about a project they're working on or something that they're really excited about? What can that do to add to their brand?
Well, for one, it'll get indexed and come up in search engines if it's at least 300 words or more. And they can take the video and the photo content and add text and then embed the video and the photo content in there. So
Okay.
it's helpful.
Even if it's back end or front facing, is it okay for candidates to go around you and to go around the HR person and contact the hiring manager directly?
It won't get you anywhere. Let me say it like that, because the recruiter's job is to get you into process, and the sooner or later I will get you in contact with the hiring manager if we decide to move forward with you.
So you act as the filter. They've hired you to do that for them. Will a candidate who does an end around and is very determined and has found the name or the email address or the Twitter handle of the person that will hire the candidate, are you saying that they would, in your view, be penalized
No.
for doing that?
No, they wouldn't. I think if you want to go that route, you can totally connect, but just connect on LinkedIn. That would be a good way, like I said earlier, to network, right? To build your network on LinkedIn. You can connect with the hiring manager for sure, but maybe you shouldn't send an email out because he probably won't do much with it because it's not his job, right, to do that.
Tracy Sestilli is the CEO of Social Strand Media in San Francisco. Julia Sievert is a technical recruiter for Pop Sugar, our guest today. If you have a question for them, please use the hashtag AAUCOM and we'll forward your questions. Your company has a lot of different people positions, of course. You're focused on a specific discipline in Pop Sugar. What can a candidate who wants to get in but has found you, what can they say or do to make you willing to refer them? What can they do to impress you where you go, well, this isn't right for my thing, but I loved their pitch and I loved how they came at me about it. What do they have to do to impress you?
So there are two different things. I think if it's, if someone sends me an email on LinkedIn and says, hey, Julia, I'm interested in the social media manager position. And what I usually do, I, send them a link with our corp site with the actual job link where they can apply online, right? So we have everything in our system. We're using an ATS, an applicant tracking system, where all the information are on there. If you just send me an email with your resume, I most likely forget about it, or it's gonna, end up somewhere in my email. So that's what I usually do. When it's different with internal referrals, right? When one of our employees refers a candidate to me, that's when I will, send the resume to the hiring manager.
This one's for both of you. And we've already talked about it. We've mentioned the name probably 10 times or more since we started talking. But I just want people to get this ingrained in their brain. Because students hear one thing from their instructor. Then they talk to their friend, and their friend tells them something else. And then maybe someone in their network gives them alternative advice. And if you haven't done this a lot, if you're just getting started in work, you don't know what's right. How important is LinkedIn? Tell us both again exactly why it is absolutely critical.
You want to go first?
Sure. I mean, like I said, networking is key, right? You want to have your whole LinkedIn profile up to date, right? It's the first impression, right? Us as an employee, that's the first impression of you. If your LinkedIn profile is not up to date, what are we going to do with it, right? We can't really evaluate your skills or anything with it. So, yeah, super important.
Well, let me ask you this. How did we communicate to get me here today?
LinkedIn.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
And then I immediately reached out to Julia and I said, oh, I hear that you're going to be doing this interview with John. By the way, I'm Tracy. Nice to meet you, whatever. So now Julia and I are connected. She was like, that's such a nice way of reaching out.
Yeah, it's great.
But
great.
I mean,
And now we're all friends.
now we're
now.
all friends.
Yeah.
And but I think it is it is the number one thing that comes up in search. People, when they go to look up your name, you go Google yourself today or put yourself on Bing and see what comes up. And not only do you want to be in the first 3 pages, right? And everything that's on there should be relevant about you. And LinkedIn is in the top, usually 5 results, search results.
Yeah.
Can we agree that it's not the greatest user experience in the world?
Yeah, well,
It's not.
They're trying,
they're getting there.
but what it does, would you both agree with this statement? LinkedIn is a fantastic place to be found.
Yes.
When you think about, it's not a place to post silliness, although I'm starting to see what I call meme creep into LinkedIn, where people are posting silly stuff and pictures of their vacation. Is that appropriate for LinkedIn? Those kind of photos and images?
I don't think so. I mean, LinkedIn has always been known as the professional network. That's where people, I mean, it's a marketer's goldmine, but it's a professional network. And I saw something today also where someone was posting a recipe, and and they're not really,
Interesting.
you know, they're not a chef or they're not, you know, a food blogger. So I wasn't really expecting that, you know. So you're right, a little meme creep.
One day I was feeling cranky, and someone posted a cat photo, literally a cat photo. And I wrote underneath, I go, you really shouldn't do that, you know.
Yeah.
It's not professional.
It's not professional.
They didn't
yeah.
respond, but like
But I
said,
think your point about being found is really, it's what do you want to be known for? If you want to be known for something, you can be found on LinkedIn for that skill set.
Yeah.
yeah.
And also, can I add something
Yeah.
to that?
Please.
You know, when you create your profile on LinkedIn, make sure to use a lot of keywords, right? You don't want to be vague in what you're doing, because I use Recruiter Premium, right? It's like another subscription where I can source candidates, where I put in, you know, the keywords like JavaScript, HTML, Photoshop, Illustrator, Sketch, and it shows me the exact same people that have all those keywords in their profiles, right?
Selfie okay for a profile picture?
No.
It depends, right?
Well,
if it's a good one.
I think, yeah, if it's a good one, my thing is this, it has to look like you when you walk into a coffee
Sure,
shop,
I
right?
agree with that.
So when you walk into the interview, if you come in and it doesn't look like you, I mean, I've seen this on candidates, right? Someone has a photo that they look really good in 1995 and it was great, but then they come in, it's 2015, the picture's 20 years old, they're 20 pounds heavier and they're, you know,
It's true.
aged.
The first thing that Stacy told me when we met back there, she was like,
Tracy.
Tracy, oh yeah, actually your profile picture actually looks like you. Congratulations.
I
We all
recognize
look
her in
like
the
each
lobby,
other.
yeah.
Well, congratulations
Yeah.
to all of
I
us.
was like, you're Julia, right? She's like, yeah. I'm like, it looks like you.
But no hats, no sunglasses, no beach shots.
It should be from the neck up. Like, from the neck up, I think is a good shot. Everybody looks great in black and white. You can take it with your iPhone, put the filter on Instagram or whatever, and post it. But you just it needs to look like you.
Some folks view branded content as sort of phony. It's a commercial. It's not pure. It's not journalism. But I got to admit, I can't believe I'm going to admit this to you, but Starbucks, some guy at Starbucks writes something called the Pike Place blog. And it has nothing to do about coffee shops. It's about stories about coffee farmers and the lives of these people who are their growers. And for some reason, the guy's just a good writer. And sometimes when I come across it, it's in my Flipboard feed. And I'll see it, and I end up reading it more times than not. But it wasn't a commercial for Starbucks in my view. Of course, it's branded as such. What are your thoughts about that? How can companies do this sort of content authentically?
I mean, this is what I was kind of referring to earlier with as native content. Like, it has to appear to be authentic. It has to appear to be, like, you don't even know that guy, I mean, how do you know that guy works for Starbucks? It has it in his bio somewhere? Or?
I don't.
Okay, but you just associate it with Starbucks when you read it.
He tells a good story.
He tells a good story. And I think that it's really all about telling a story. Every brand has a story, and it's how you make that story and relate it to the problems that other people are having and how they can relate to you. It has to be relevant. That's what people are looking for.
What does a student story sound like to you? Is it that version of Tell Me About Yourself?
I think so, yes. Yeah.
Is it okay for them to use the word I a lot?
It's about you, right? Sure.
Well, is it? In
about
other
you as a
words,
student.
about maybe an experience you've had, but you know, words matter. How you write and say something. I mean, we spend all this time crafting our social media posts and the Instagram photos that are cropped with just the good part of us showing. it's difficult to talk about ourselves, actually. It's much easier to talk about a friend or a family member than to tell our own story. But this sort of branding and marketing of yourself, what students will need to do to get a job, is really a narrative about me.
You have to, like, this is something in the LinkedIn profile, like, I don't know how it is from a recruiter's perspective, but when I see people write their LinkedIn profile in the third person, Tracy, blah, 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 you know, I'm like, we're not rock stars, we're not famous, right? I do this. This is, you know, in the first 3 sentences, just say what you do, why you're great, and what makes you unique from every other video editor or photographer or whatever out there. There has to be something that sets you apart. I mean, if you go to my LinkedIn profile, you'll see that the one thing that I tell you what sets me apart from everybody else. You know, I have operations and project management background. There are very few marketers that have that skill set. That's what makes me unique. But, you know, everybody has their own thing that makes them unique. It could be that you collect, you know, iguanas. I don't care what it is, but something that makes you stand out so that when Julia's reading your resume and scanning it, she's like, oh yeah, the guy that he has iguanas as pets or whatever. You know what I mean? There's something that needs to stand out in that opening paragraph, and you have to write I.
Because if your hiring manager also collects iguanas,
It's exciting.
Exciting.
Now
yeah,
you're both
probably gonna
excited.
get
There's something in
hired right
common.
away.
and you have something to keep the conversation going.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh my God, I love golden retrievers. They're awesome.
Yeah.
Tell me about yours.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. There's an infinite number of places to talk about yourself and to post things about yourself. What are your 5, try and get me 5 favorites that are sort of can't miss
To talk about myself or to talk about a brand?
for a millennial to talk about their skills and strengths?
So LinkedIn, I think, is definitely one. Twitter is one. I'm not a big fan of Facebook personally. However, there's 1.8 billion people on Facebook, so everybody's on Facebook. I think you could definitely use that to your advantage to possibly find a job. There's, YouTube, Periscope. I mean, there's lots of things out there that Instagram. I mean, it's all about what's your medium. So like if you're a photographer, then you probably are going to use something like Pinterest or another site that can feature your portfolio, right? So that's what you're going to use. If you do video, then you're probably going to use Vimeo or YouTube or Periscope or something like that, or Meerkat, that kind of, showcase what you're good at, right? So, and those things, that multimedia, you can put that in your LinkedIn profile, which Julia will see when she goes to review your resume.
Behance, we have a
Behance.
deal with Behance to
Behance.
student portfolios,
Yeah.
and they link to a LinkedIn profile. But is Pinterest taken seriously for job portfolios for things visual in your experience?
It depends, right? If we're going to hire a fashion blogger or something, it would be great to see a nice portfolio of pictures, right? Of pictures that you collected over the past couple of years, pictures that inspire you to write your stories, right? But like you said, it totally depends what medium you're in, right? If you're an engineer and you use GitHub, right, to show your code, no fashion blogger is ever going to, sign up for GitHub, right?
Speaking of Periscope and Meerkat, these are newish live video mobile streaming apps, and they're kind of cool. The stuff that's on there right now is a little amateurish as these things are getting started, but a lot of brands like CNN, the Food Network, ESPN have tried Snapchat stories without a lot of success, granted, but they felt it was important to be on there at least to try it. But with Periscope, streaming apps, and these new things, would you advise a client just to try everything for a while and then narrow it down?
I wouldn't advise them to try everything, because that drives a social media manager nuts, because then you have to maintain all this and you have to have a content strategy for every single network. But I do think that if you've listened and you think that video is something that resonates with your customer, then you do want to try the video platforms out to give them a shot. And I think that like sites like Periscope and Meerkat, from a brand's perspective, it gives people the ability to trust that brand a little bit more, because it's a little bit more personal. You can have like the CEO or somebody like that kind of do a video chat or a product demo or whatever. It gets them to know the product better.
We should probably back up a step. A question from Twitter, a user says, what is Periscope? Show of hands in the audience. How many people of you have heard of Periscope or Meerkat? See, not?
Wow, yeah.
We who look at this stuff all the time think, oh, well, everybody knows that stuff. Would you like to explain?
Sure. Periscope and Meerkat, they're very similar. They're live stream video. It's similar to what Google Hangouts tried to be, if you will. But the difference is that Periscope has a few more features than Meerkat does. Periscope allows you to save the videos, review them later. Meerkat, it's live, so what you can see it now, why it's live streaming, but that's it. You can't go back and replay it or anything like that.
Periscope's owned by Twitter.
Yeah, Periscope's owned by Twitter.
So basically, you can take your phone, turn it on, and broadcast to the entire solar system what you're doing right now. It's not exactly private,
Well, nothing is.
but then what is?
Yeah, that's right.
It's a fun way maybe to get back, if you're backstage at a great award show and there's celebrities back there, there's privacy issues. Maybe I don't want to be photographed or videoed today. We've got to sort of work through that stuff. But it can be a cool way to take people behind the scenes of things. But we've gotten so behind the scenes with all the different platforms. What else is there to, what's left to reveal, right? If there's a typo on a resume, what do you do with it?
I don't like it. It happens, right? I mean, we all send out our very first resume, and I think, the more often you read through your own resume, the quicker maybe you just read, oh, there's a typo, but I don't actually see it, right? So it's important to have your friends or family or, people look over your resume, and I don't want to judge people when there is a typo, and especially not when it's an intern, when you grad, right? But it
Unless
should
they were
not
gonna be
happen.
a copy editor, then you might judge them.
Then
on
I
the
might
typo.
judge a lot. Yeah, but it should not happen.
Yeah.
no.
It's really funny. Students will argue with me about typos. They think you can have a mistake or two. That's old school thinking that they have to be perfect. I would say, submit, that if you can't spell a word right and make sure that it's right when you present yourself, you might not do other stuff at work where you're so thorough. Well, what do you think?
The attention to detail. I think that's interesting. I used to do consulting for a woman who was crazy with a capital K about grammar. And so we had the social media interns come in, and they were putting up tweets and Facebook posts, and if they weren't exactly grammatically correct, she would flip out and ask them to take it down and then repost it. And as an intern, it's a little, you're just like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Like, it's Twitter, I have 140 characters, I can only get so much out there anyway. Does a typo really matter? No, on a resume, I think people notice it. But again, I think it depends on the job type too, right? So
Yeah. Are cover letters still important?
Not really.
Not
No. It doesn't really say much about you, right? You can say, oh, I love your company, but you actually don't, right? Because you just say it on there. And usually recruiters read every third word on a cover letter, right? So I don't really care about a cover letter. But again, it totally depends what position you're applying for, right? And yeah.
If you're applying to be a teacher, the cover letter is supposed to be 2 pages long.
Oh, I didn't know
Academic, yeah, applying for a job in academics is a little bit different, and every industry is different, but so you're saying, generally speaking, your company doesn't require it. You want to see the portfolio of work, resume that demonstrates they know what they're
Yeah.
doing, right? Okay. If students would like to follow up, and they should after this, to ask you more questions, how can they get a hold of you?
you can reach me on Twitter all the time at Tracy Sestilli.
LinkedIn or my work email. I don't know if we can show that somewhere. Or
Yeah, I think we
Is
have.
that-
I think we have it up on the screen. Your
Okay.
contact
Yeah,
information. Will you accept a LinkedIn invitation from anyone?
No.
If there's a creep factor in the photo or something, or they're on the other end of the planet and you have no idea why they would want to be friends with you or connection?
So for LinkedIn, it's very interesting. There are some people that insist on connecting with everybody that is in their genre, their niche. Like if they're marketing, everybody wants to do that. I weed through them. I look at each one of them. I decide, I may know you, I may not know you. But if you send me a note with the connection request, I'm more likely to possibly do it if I think you're not going to give me a sales pitch afterwards. The thing about LinkedIn, as you said earlier, because the platforms, they're still struggling with some things, is the mobile connect doesn't give you the ability to send a personal note. So there's a giant thread on one of the marketing forums in LinkedIn that says, oh, people that are sending me a connection request with no personalization to it, I just delete those. And I'm always like, yes, but if they did it through their mobile app, there's no way to send a note with it. So they may have just wanted to say, oh, I'm going to connect with you really quickly.
All right. Well, thanks to both of you for coming. Really appreciate your insights. Tracy Sestili is the CEO of Social Strand Media in San Francisco, and Julia Seaver, technical recruiting for Pop Sugar. A recording of the show will be available soon if you want to go back and review any parts of our conversation. And don't forget to follow your comm department. We're on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and our blog, which is academyartcom.com. We let you know about upcoming events when there's cool things like this, or Facebook's coming to hire people next week, by the way. We have that on our social media, so if you're interested in working for them, that might be a great place to keep up with what's going on in comm. Thanks to Kevin Maurer and his awesome team for helping putting the show together, and to Vanessa Garcia for hosting comm's own social platforms today. I'm John Scott. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.